Alright, so working on the Cherokee here, and I've got quite a few number of things to do, so I'm not going to go super in depth with this one, but just wanted to document and highlight that I'm finally getting to the driver's side ball joints. I did the passenger ones last year because I had to do it to pass safety, and they recommended doing these ones, so get that out of the way. I also have an outer axle tube seal that I only did on the other side, so we'll get that done now. We've got a couple of 3/4 inch spring spacers just to level out the car a little bit. I find it has a bit of a forward rake after the add-a-leaf was done in the rear to get rid of the original sag. And ball joints are here. Everything's already greased up. We've got the car up on jack stands just underneath the rear, or just underneath the front lower control arms. I also have a V8 Grand Cherokee steering setup that I'm going to probably add to this car. We're cleaning that up now. Going to give that a coat of paint. And we're going to check out the shocks, the steering stabilizer. So pretty much an entire front end rebuild on this, and just make sure everything is good to go and won't have to deal with that for a while. So I'll just show you all the main highlights as I go through. So this is the front end here before we started taking it all apart. You can see it's all kind of dirty and gunky, but a lot of it has helped to prevent some rust, so that's pretty good. And then here we can see took out the original steering so that we can put in our V8 steering arms. And here is the V8 arm. I just sanded it down, painted it next to the old one there. You can see they're pretty much the same, just that the V8 one is thicker and the tie rod end on the outer side there is slightly different the way it attaches, but mostly the same. This is just a quick look here at the passenger side with the spring out, arms out, sway bar links all disconnected, and we used our coil spring compressors there to help get that out so we can put in our spacers. Oh my god, guys, it has been a minute. So much is happening, kind of relatively, in the garage here. So the last stuff that I was recording of the Jeep here, we were working on replacing the steering and adding our spacers in. So we have our V8 Grand Cherokee steering arms in here, and we also were able to complete our spacer there. Very minor, 3/4 inch. It's hard to tell in the garage here, but when I have it in parking lots and stuff, it looks nice and level now, because the person who owned this before me did an add-a-leaf from the rear to get rid of the sag, but it was like a little bit of rigged. So now it's all good and perfect that way. And I just spent the last couple hours in the scrapyard pulling parts from another Jeep, because the main thing that the most important thing that I wanted to be doing was the ball joints on the driver's side. And as soon as I got down to do them, one of the 3 hub bolts was fully stripped. So I'm about to sweat my balls off and struggle on that. That's gonna really suck. But I went to the scrapyard to grab a couple new ones. I was also able to get a new dome light for the rear. This dome light here on my Jeep, the wiring in it is fried, so that's not even plugged in. It's just in there as a placeholder. And eventually I want to put LED lights in and all around and whatnot. I tried to pull a clock spring because I had an issue with my horn. The horn doesn't work anymore, so I had to route that to a button here. And I'm pretty sure it's just a clock spring. But our airbag light and all that is off, so if you know Jeeps, you know that that's common pain in the butt. And yeah, I don't know. I just grabbed a couple extra nuts and bolts, as you do if you're at a scrapyard. Switches. I needed a new rear wiper switch because mine was being funky. So, oh, and a low pressure switch, my air conditioning. If you have an issue where your AC is charged and when it's on, the piping here is still cold, but it's not blowing inside the cabin, it's the low pressure switch. So mine's just jumpered right now. And I grabbed a new one of those at the scrapyard, a new one. So I'm gonna swap that in and see if that works so that it can be back to normal. But enough of that. Let's get, hopefully, these ball joints replaced. Oh, and my axle outer tube seal. There's just so many parts that I've had laying around that I've been wanting to throw on this thing just to get it that much nicer and maintenance stuff done before I even do any mods on this. I'm getting maintenance done first. So now we have the driver's side here. Everything's opened up, wheel off, jacked up, back to where we started. And we're just taking some heat. I'm trying a couple different techniques to get that strip bolts off. Started with some side strips, kind of tighten them on there as much as I can, and see if I can get that to turn after heating up the bolts for a couple minutes, really, with heat gas. But This technique obviously didn't work too great. Vice grips were slipping. Started hitting it with a hammer here. Give it a couple pushes, but pretty much every time I would do this, it would just slip right off. So I went looking through the cabinets to see if I had any other tools or solutions to get this off, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I do have a strip bolt extractor. So I went and grabbed one of those, found one that would fit, hammered it on there nice and tight, and grabbed the socket to flip over it, get a little flare to the car guides, hoping it would work. And after a couple little pushes, I realized it would start coming off. So hit it with the heat again, just to be sure it comes off as easy as possible. And give it a few small nudges as we go. Of course, it broke free. Alright, for the sake of not being repetitive, for the fact that there's a million videos on how to do this online, I'm just going to highlight everything for this session. But oh my god, we got it off, so, or got it to start moving. So basically we just hit the back of it with a lot of heat, argon gas. I tried vice grips to spin it at first, but it really wasn't getting a good hold on it. But I have here this Craftsman, because we're Canadian, that's probably Canadian thing, crappy tire brand. It's these extractors meant for stripped bolts, and initially I kind of forgot that we had them, or just totally evaded my mind because of these being the like 26 spline, whatever it is, bits, and not a normal bolt, but this works just as well. So we put the number 10 extension or whatever. Oh yeah, because there's supposed to be some up here. So I guess that's the number 10 extractor. And put it on there with a hammer. Now we've got our 24 millimeter socket, big breaker bar that's spinning. You can see it coming out here. It still took quite a bit of force pushing on this. I was kind of worried we were going to snap the head off, because then I would probably just give up for like 3 months. Nobody wants to drill this out or chop this and get a whole new hub. But this coming out, this is a good day. This means I should be able to get the rest done, as long as I don't have too much of a struggle with the ball joints. But we got a brand new ball joint extracting press, and we went to the scrapyard and got replacement bolts for this, so amazing. Now that that strip bolt's out of the way, we can take our socket and go ahead and take off the other two bolts there. It's just a 13 millimeter socket with the, I don't know, however many splines that is. And once we get those off, take off the cotter pin for the axle nut, take off the sort of metal cover, I guess you'd call it, that's on top of it there. Find our 36 millimeter socket, get the big electric 1/2 inch impact, and use a screwdriver to stop the hub from spinning. Got that off. Pretty easy actually, just nice. And then the more annoying part of all this was the hub that got kind of stuck to most of the axle there. I found this chisel that was the right shape and size to help pull it out a little bit. Kept hammering away on each side. It does have sort of a metal gasket in there, but yeah, it's definitely been a while since this has been done. So after a few minutes hammering, cut that off, pull the rest out, and now we have access to the goods. Alright, so here's where we're at. We got the hub off finally. Really had to hammer the crap out of that, the chisel and stuff, to get that to break free. But our wheel bearing seems like it's in good shape. Now we are gonna try and install our axle tube seal there. Actually, yeah, we'll take off the ball joints first, then this whole thing is out of the way. Should make it easier to put our tube seal, because that just goes straight in there. We're gonna have to clean that up and hammer it in, and then we can do our ball joints. But I noticed that the U-joints on this side are just like tons of play. I could tell before I even took it out that these were gonna need to be replaced, but that's after I ordered everything to do this, so that's at a later day. Luckily, now that I'll have gone through this and anti-seized everything, it won't be too much a pain in the butt to take that back out. But before winter, before I have to use 4-wheel drive again, gonna have to get that done.
Everything that happens is motivation.
Now we're pulling out cotter pins for the ball joints, both on the top and the bottom. And if these are old like mine, they usually tend to get stuck in there with all the dirt and whatnot building up. So you just try and get them out, and if they don't, then use something to kind of break them off and smush them in as much as possible. Here the top one is pretty easy. I'm able to get that out most of the way, and then I just leave it on with a few threads so that the spindle doesn't totally fall once we get to that point. And working on the bottom, I noticed that the cotter pins are still in the way, so flathead and hammered at it, and this little pick to try and get the last bits out of the way so that I'm able to spin it. And we decided to put some heat on there to make sure we have the easiest time possible getting this off. Don't want to spend too much time trying to pull on it when I can just get it up, not even worry about it. And of course, have to use something to take the nut off because it's very hot. And after that, took the pickle fork and wedged that in there because it wasn't just falling off on its own with a hammer. Put that in there, and then I realized, oops, I can take the nut off fully, so take the nut all the way off, give it a few more smacks. It wasn't coming off after being hammered straight in like this, so we spray it with some more lubricant and then give it some good smacks on the side, and it falls totally off, disappears. Then go ahead and clean up your work area, get some of that rust off the ground out of the way, and clean up the actual axle tube, the seal, all this area here. Alright, so we're at the point here where we got the ball joint press installed, everything else is taken off, clean this up, and I'm about to press this out, but notice a little darker in here, power's out. We just had the craziest flash, we just had the craziest little flash rain, hail I've never seen in my life. I'll insert the video that I just took. As if. Oh, fuck. Literally golf ball size hail. Showering down, crazy winds. Almost like it was gonna start being a tornado, but luckily it's not. But as if my old piece of crap car is the one in the garage while all the expensive cars are outside. But alright, so we got our old ball joint out here. This nasty thing. Still don't have power back, so I'm gonna have to make sure I set up some light. But look at this, gross. Yuck. Replace that with some fresh stuff. After I pressed it out, it was kind of stuck in the top a little, so you just take a hammer, smack it on each side a little bit, and it'll come right out. Alright, I'm just gonna voice over this clip here because it was just me saying in the most long-winded way possible that with most ball joint presses, you're going to start by taking the top ball joint out and then doing the bottom one. And when you're putting them back in, usually you do the same thing. And in this case, it's because you're going to slip part of the arm for the press and clamp through the hole there on the top when you're doing the bottom one and whatnot. So that's all that is. Take out the bottom one, put our axle seal in. We can slap it all back together, hopefully before it gets too dark around here, because I'm just working with this light now. And luckily, I have a lot of charged batteries, but if I didn't, I'd be screwed. My phone is pretty low on battery here, about to die, so I'm just going to leave you with a few my own personal notes, and then maybe just show you the final product. So both of the ball joints are pushed out here now. Start with the top, then the bottom, and then we're going to install the top first, and then the bottom. And we're going to install our outer axle tube seal here. If you do this and you've got fluid leaking out, I mean, try and put it on as level of the surface as you can. But even still, you shouldn't have fluid draining out, which would mean you have an inner seal that's bad, which is a pain in the ass. You have to take everything out to replace it. But the outer seals, which you can get on eBay for like 40 bucks, I don't know, whatever it is, pretty cheap. Just put it in on the outside, don't have to worry about it. Inside here, where the ball joints go, same with this. Take some sandpaper or something smooth it out. You don't want to really remove any material, but just make sure that the surface is nice and clean. We're gonna put some anti-seize in there, grease, all that good stuff. Install it back in, and then it'll be good to go for a little while. Everything's in now. New ball joint, new ball joint. The axle seal is in, and this side, the axle was in way better shape. It wasn't corroding on the inside, so this one basically just pushed in, no problem at all. So that's great. And then once I get the axle in and stuff, it's got a grease fitting on the side. We're gonna grease that up. Same with the ball joints. And with the ball joints for the lower one, you know, you have this the boot that goes on after. Total pain in the ass. Just grab, I mean, what works for me is the 36 millimeter, the axle socket. You can just push this into it and then push it in, give it a good little push, and it should pop on to it. I know Mevitech has a tool specifically for it, but it doesn't come with this kit, and I don't have one, so just grab a big socket and push it over.
When you ask me to bring that guacamole to the party, I'll say no, no. If you ask me bring the guacamole to the party, I'll say no, no, no. That shit's too expensive.